Hello, welcome to a video on mean absolute deviation. So we've been talking about mean, median, mode, and range as ways to analyze and compare data and make some observations about them. But as we've also seen, this data does not always really reflect the overall scope of what's going on. And that's what this mean absolute deviation is going to do for us. It's going to help us whenever it seems like the data doesn't really reflect things overall. So to show you what that is, let's look here at Group A and Group B. So let's say Group A and Group B are kids in a classroom. So what happened was the teacher passed out 20 worksheets to each group, and they said that they need to get them done and turn them in. So this is how Group A split it between their 4 people, and this is how Group B split it between their 4 people. Now, both of these have a mean of 5. They should average, realistically, they should be averaging 5 worksheets each. That's how the teacher was hoping they would do it. Split the work equally, don't have one person do all the work. I'm sure we've all been in a group where you might have been the one person doing all the work, or you could have been the person who was waiting on the other people in the group to do all the work for you. We see it happen, and it's not a good thing. Now, if I just showed you this and said, okay, Group A, they average 5 each, and Group B, they average 5 each, that looks pretty good. All right, it was pretty even. But when you actually look at the numbers, you can tell that this isn't even. The work wasn't split evenly. So what we are going to do is we are going to find the mean absolute deviation, MAD. Because whenever the work isn't like this, and it's not really even, and it's like this, it'll make you mad. Unless you're that one, and then you get a good grade anyway, you probably are happy, but other people aren't happy with you. So here, we're going to come back to this. So here's how we find the absolute mean, the mean absolute deviation. First step is find the mean of the data. The second step is to find the absolute value of the distance for each data point to the mean. And then we're going to find the average of that. So what we're doing is trying to figure out how far is what's the average distance that each of these data points is from the actual mean. And realistically, we'd like them to be as close as we could. That would show that everything was, fair in this case. If it's bigger, that means that there was a wide spread, which means in this scenario that the work wasn't split very evenly. So we're going to start with Group A. We already have the mean, so we know that's 5. Now we got to figure out how far away all these other points are. So we're going to find the absolute value, distance. So we're going to take 5 minus 3, and the absolute value of that is 2. Then we're going to do 5 minus 5, which is 0. We don't really have to do that because it's 0. Then we have 5, 6, which is 1. And then we have 5 minus 6 again, which is also 1. So now we're going to find the average of this. And then divide that by how many are there. 4 divided by 4 is 1. So the mean absolute deviation for Group A is 1. So that means that on average, each of those data points is about 1 away from the mean. That's really close. That's pretty good in this scenario. Now, when we do it for Group B, though, why did I do that? Let's put the B up here. Give me a little bit more room to work. So we're going to take 5 minus 1, 4. 5 minus 2, which is 3. 5 minus 4, which is 1, and 5 minus 13, which is 8. And now we're going to find the average of that. So that gives me 4. Because we got 16 divided by 4, which is 4. So what these two numbers tell us is how far away, on average, each point is away from our mean. So it's basically like the mean of the mean kind of deal going on here. And this can be used in several ways. What way we're using it here is going, okay, Group A, everyone was about 1 away from the mean. That's pretty good. That means a couple people might have did a little bit more, and 1 or 2 people might have done a little bit less. Whereas when we look at Group B, when their average is 4 away, well, if the mean's 5 and you're 4 away, that means that you're either doing 1 or 9. That's a big difference, and that's reflected with the data as we see that Group B had someone do 1, 2, 4, and 13. So that tells us that that group is a little bit off when we look at it in that sense. So again, find the mean, find the absolute value of the distance from each data point to the mean, and then find the average of that to find our mean absolute deviation. So now we're going to look at some fundraising. So let's see, we have the 6th grade and the 7th grade. So we're going to first find the mean of those to figure out what their average was for each class. So we add all these up and then divide it by 5, and magically a 94 appears because I wanted these to have the same amount of money values here. So we're going to divide this by 6, and we're going to divide this by 6. So I'm going to pause the video now and do that. And what we get when we find the average is 107 and 119. So on average, each 6th grader fundraised about $107, and each 7th grader fundraised about $119. But let's go ahead and take a look at the mean absolute deviation to figure out really how close these are to each other. Was it really that even between them, or was there a big disparity between the groups? So we're going to find the mean absolute deviation. So what I'm going to do now is pause the video again and copy over that whole list of absolute values. Okay, now that I got these copied down, let's go ahead and figure out what these are. So we get 19, 9, 1, 5, 17, and then can't do that one in my head for some reason, 13. So let's find the mean absolute deviation. So we're going to add all those up and divide it by 6. So I add all those up. And I get 64, and 64 divided by 6 is 10.6, actually 10.7. So on average, each one of the kids sold about $10 away from the mean. And then we do the other one over here. We get 25. 28, we get some big numbers here. 22, 3, 9, and 13. We add all those up and divide it by 6. We get 100. Which is $16.7. So we can see here that while the mean was greater, so it looks like on average the 7th graders each sold more than the 6th graders just individually. In reality, there's some 7th graders that went all out and sold a lot more, and then a couple that sold less. whereas our 6th graders were kind of close. And there's other data interpretations you can make from this, but this is what the mean absolute deviation does for us. It shows us where things are from the mean.